Karen's sisters stole my mails, so the postal inspector set up a sting and arrested them. The storm had rolled in quietly, draping the suburban cul-de-sac in a thick curtain of drizzle. Rainwater slithered down the slope street, pooling near the curb like it was trying to escape something. I pulled into my driveway, windshield wipers squeaking against glass, and immediately noticed something off. Again, my mailbox stood slightly ajar, its thin metal door flapping in the wind like a loose shutter. I killed the engine and stepped out, tugging my jacket tighter as the cold, wet air slapped against my face. I jogged to the mailbox, heart already sinking. Empty. No junk mail, no bills, no flyers, not even the pre-approved credit card offers I'd grown to hate. Nothing. Third time this week. I stood there for a moment, letting the rain bead across my skin as I stared into the hollow box. Just last month, I'd ordered a limited edition camera lens that never showed up. Then, a check from a freelance client vanished. Now 2 days after my birthday, I still hadn't received the card my mom swore she'd sent with a $100 bill inside. At first, I thought it was a mistake. Mail gets delayed. Packages get lost. But now, it felt deliberate. The sound of a screen door slamming jolted me. I turned and spotted them. Those two, standing across the street on their porch, oversized drinks in hand, like this was some beach resort. Emily and Emma. 40 years old, identical twins, and impossible to miss. Emily wore a blue floral dress that clung tightly to her wide frame. An orange cardigan stretched across her shoulders like it was fighting for its life. Her signature red round glasses sat crooked on her nose. Emma, slightly bulkier, wore a green polka dot dress and a faded yellow cardigan that fluttered like a flag of warning in the breeze. They weren't whispering, they never whispered. Everything they did was loud, invasive, and unapologetic. "Poor baby looks wet and mail-less," Emily called out, voice syrupy with fake concern. Emma snorted with laughter. "Maybe Santa lost his address this year." I clenched my jaw, forced a tight smile, and walked back toward my door, trying to ignore the way they watched me. Like vultures on a wire. Inside, I tossed my soaked jacket onto the hook and headed straight for my laptop. I pulled up the USPS tracking site, again, and stared at the delivery logs. My mother's card had been marked delivered 2 days ago. Just like the lens. Just like the client's check. The rain picked up outside. The pitter-patter turned into a steady drumming on the windows. I paced my living room, uneasy. This wasn't random. This wasn't weather-related. Somebody was taking my mail. And I was starting to think I knew exactly who. The next morning, I spoke to my neighbor, Ms. Aguilar, retired teacher, early riser, and an unofficial sentry of the neighborhood. We were chatting near the hedge line when she leaned in conspiratorially. "You didn't hear this from me," she whispered, "but I saw those 2 hefty ladies across the street snooping around your porch 2 nights ago. I thought they were looking for a cat until I realized one of them was holding an envelope." I blinked. "You're sure?" "Bright orange sweater. Blue dress. The one with the glasses. Emily, I think." My stomach twisted. That wasn't just gossip. That was confirmation. That night, I drove to the nearest electronics store and picked up a cheap outdoor security cam. It wasn't top of the line, but it would do. I mounted it above the porch light and synced it to my phone. The next day, I checked the footage eagerly, only to find a blank spot where the recording should have been. I checked the camera. The power cable had been pulled clean out. Coincidence? Not likely. I installed a backup inside the mailbox, hidden beneath the lid. This time, it recorded. And what I saw 2 days later had my blood boiling. Emma. Midnight. Hair pulled into a sloppy bun. She waddled up the sidewalk like she owned the street, glanced over her shoulder, then popped open my mailbox like she was checking her own. She reached in, paused, and stuffed something into her oversized purse. She even smiled at the camera on my porch before waddling back across the street. The audacity. I marched over to their house the next afternoon. The sky was clear now, the storm long gone, but my anger hadn't passed with it. My fists clenched at my sides as I rang their doorbell. Emily opened the door, leaning heavily against the frame, drink in hand as usual. "Oh, look who it is." Mailman of the Year. I took a breath. I know what you've been doing. I saw the footage. Emma appeared behind her, eating from a tub of ice cream. You spying on us now? Creepy much? I've called the police. That got their attention. Emily's fake smile vanished. Excuse me. You heard me. You've been stealing my mail. That's a federal crime. Emily stepped forward, close enough that I could smell the cheap perfume and microwave cheese clinging to her clothes. You better watch your mouth, sweetheart. Accusing two innocent women like that? That's defamation. Innocent. I pulled out my phone, thumb hovering over the footage. I have video. Emma gasped dramatically, slapping her chest. He's filming us now? This is harassment. Fat shaming, too. We're gonna call our lawyer. You don't have a lawyer, I snapped. They both blinked. Fine, Emily hissed. Try anything, and we'll tell the HOA you've been spying on us. Installing illegal surveillance. Making the neighborhood uncomfortable. I backed away slowly, heart thudding. I knew I had the truth on my side, but I also knew how manipulative they could be. The kind of people who'd smile sweetly while throwing you under the bus, then sue you for blocking their view. True to their word, the HOA contacted me 2 days later. Someone had filed a complaint about unauthorized security equipment, neighbor harassment, and, my favorite, public intimidation. Now I was on defense. The twins strutted around the neighborhood like they were untouchable. Emily took to calling me mail boy whenever she saw me. Emma barked fake laughs as she made a show of checking her mailbox loudly, like she was mocking me. And then things got worse. A neighbor's package ended up on my porch, likely a misdelivery. Before I could even walk it back to them, it vanished. The camera caught it, Emily this time. No hesitation. She came right up and took it, humming. When the neighbor, Mr. Bailey, confronted me, I explained what had happened and showed him the footage. He was shocked. They've been stealing my mail too, he said. I thought I was going crazy. We compared notes. Another neighbor, then another. Same story. Missing mail. Packages never arriving. The only common thread? Emily and Emma. I knew then it wasn't just about me anymore. This was a pattern. A full-blown neighborhood crime spree. But the local police weren't much help. They said unless the value of the stolen goods was substantial or we had definitive, time-stamped evidence, there wasn't much they could do. Civil dispute at best. Civil dispute? They were raiding our porches like it was a Black Friday sale. I went home that night furious and defeated. But that's when the idea hit me. If the police wouldn't help, maybe it was time to go higher. Time to call someone who actually cared about mail. The next morning, I made the call. United States Postal Inspection Service, the voice on the line said. I cleared my throat. Hi. I believe I'm dealing with serial mail theft. I have video, names, a pattern, address. I gave it. There was a pause, followed by a click of a keyboard. Then the voice spoke again, calm and precise. I'm assigning Inspector Jennings. He'll be in touch soon. I hung up, staring at the phone in my hand. For the first time in weeks, I felt something close to hope. Because the game was no longer between me and the twins. Now, the federal government was involved. And the Karens had no idea what was coming. It took less than 48 hours for Inspector Jennings to arrive on my doorstep. He didn't look like what I expected. No uniform, no sunglasses, no dramatic fedora or trench coat. Just a pressed button-down shirt, slacks, and a small leather notebook tucked neatly under his arm. He was calm, composed, and his eyes scanned everything. My house, my porch, the position of the mailbox, without saying a word. You the one who called in about the missing mail? He asked, extending a firm hand. I nodded. It's not just missing. It's being stolen. Repeatedly. And I have video proof. He arched a brow, stepping inside. Show me. I played him the clearest footage I had. Emma swiping a padded envelope and shoving it into that monstrous purse of hers, smirking like a raccoon who'd just raided a trash can. Jennings watched silently, arms crossed. When it ended, he leaned back. Yep, he said simply. That's mail theft. Great. So what now? I asked, already feeling a glimmer of relief. We build a case, he replied. A solid one. with bait, surveillance, and evidence they can't wriggle out of. There was a quiet confidence in his voice. Not arrogance. Experience. Like he'd seen this exact story play out 100 times before. We spent the next hour planning. Jennings had a calm, methodical way of speaking, like everything was a chessboard and he already knew the final move. He asked about the twins' habits, when mail was typically stolen, whether I noticed them watching the street. They monitored deliveries like hawks, I told him. As soon as a truck pulls up, they're at their windows. He nodded. They'll take the bait then. The plan was simple but effective. I'd receive a decoy package containing a GPS tracker the size of a quarter and a few marked bills dusted with UV powder. Inside the envelope, a fake sweepstakes check and a congratulatory letter to make it look appealing. Jennings would coordinate with a local team, station an unmarked car nearby, and monitor everything from a remote laptop. This isn't just for your case, he said as he left. If they've done this to you, chances are they've done it to others. If we get enough evidence, we're talking felony charges. Years in prison. It was more than I could have hoped for. The next few days passed in a tense haze. I continued to get mocking waves from Emily and Emma. Emily waddled across the lawn one afternoon in a suspiciously cheery mood, holding an armful of shopping bags. New wardrobe, mailboy, she called. Found a great deal on your side of the street. I didn't respond. Just smiled back, teeth clenched. I knew what she'd really found. They were getting bold. Emma left an empty Amazon box on my porch with a post-it note stuck to the side. Oops. Thought this was ours. Jennings told me to hold tight, not to retaliate, not to speak to them again. You poke the hornet's nest before the net's ready. You lose the swarm. So I waited. And then, finally, the package arrived. It looked like any other delivery. Medium-sized padded envelope, slightly crumpled edges, fake return address from some made-up sweepstakes company. The USPS label was perfect. If you weren't looking closely, you'd never know it was a trap. I placed it inside the mailbox and locked eyes with the new hidden camera Jennings had installed the night before. I felt like a soldier planting a landmine. From my living room window, I watched their house. Nothing happened for an hour. Then 2. But just past sunset, with the streetlights buzzing to life and the sky painted in dusky purples and oranges, the twins' front door creaked open. Emma stepped out first, clutching her ever-present snack bowl. She waddled halfway down the lawn, glanced around, then called softly, "Coast looks clear." Emily emerged behind her, tugging her orange cardigan tighter. They were whispering, now nervous, but excited. They thought they were getting away with it again. Emma reached my mailbox first. She gave it a little tug, checking to see if it was unlocked. Of course it was. She reached in, pulled out the bait package, and turned it over in her hands. She read the label, chuckled, and tucked it under her arm. They were gone in seconds. I didn't move. I didn't celebrate. But my phone buzzed 30 seconds later. Tracker active. Movement detected. Jennings texted me a minute later. Package inside the house. Confirmed. It was surreal. For once, I didn't feel like the prey. I felt like the trap. That night, I barely slept. My mind raced with what might happen next. Would they deny it? Would they try to destroy the package? Would Jennings actually make the arrest? The answer came the next morning, bright and early. I was sipping coffee when I saw the unmarked van roll up down the street. 3 plainclothes agents stepped out, along with Jennings. He looked sharper than usual, more alert. They didn't knock this time. They pounded. From across the street, I saw Emily peer through the curtain. Then Emma popped into view, holding a bowl of cereal and looking half asleep. Jennings shouted something I couldn't hear. Then chaos. Emily flung open the door, waving her arms wildly. You can't just barge in here. Emma appeared behind her, wearing slippers and what looked like a stained bathrobe over her polka-dot dress. Jennings flashed his badge. Postal Inspector. We have a federal warrant. That was when I stepped outside. I couldn't help it. I needed to see. The agents pushed past the threshold. Emily screamed, "We're being raided. Help." The neighborhood was waking up now. Doors opened. Curtains shifted. Phones came out. 10 minutes passed. Then 20. And finally, Jennings stepped back onto the porch, holding a box. It was overflowing with stolen mail. Dozens of letters, envelopes, bubble mailers, even old birthday cards. One had a child's drawing on the front and a torn $20 bill inside. There were Amazon packages, magazine subscriptions, even prescription bottles. Emily was in handcuffs. Emma was crying. Mascara streaked down her face like she just walked off a haunted ride. Jennings looked across the street and met my eyes. He nodded. I returned the nod, slow and steady. Then I turned around and went back inside, heart pounding, ears ringing. I had expected satisfaction, maybe even a little triumph. But what I felt was deeper. A sense of justice. A feeling that for once, the system had actually worked. But the story wasn't over yet. Later that afternoon, I got a call from Jennings. "We found more than we expected," he said. "Turns out they weren't just stealing from you or a few neighbors. They'd been reselling items online. Cameras, jewelry, electronics. Thousands of dollars worth." He paused, then added, "That makes this mail fraud, wire fraud, and organized theft. We're pressing full federal charges. They won't be walking out anytime soon." I sat on the edge of my couch, absorbing the words. It was bigger than I thought. A lot bigger. Jennings wasn't done. "We'll be contacting everyone whose mail was recovered. We'll try to return what we can. But some of it, well, some things can't be returned once opened." "I understand," I said, "but I appreciate what you did. All of it." Jennings chuckled. "Well, I do love a good sting. And those two made it way too easy." I laughed, probably for the first time in days. It felt good, like something inside me had finally unclenched. That evening, as the sun set over the now silent street, I sat on my porch and watched the house across the road. Yellow crime scene tape flapped lazily in the breeze. Their windows were dark. No smoothies. No fake smiles. No oversized cardigans blocking the view. Just silence. But I knew the next part was coming. The fallout. The neighborhood gossip. The full uncovering of their petty empire of theft. And something told me it was going to be glorious. The day of the court hearing dawned hot and heavy with humidity, the kind that made the air feel sticky and sour even before sunrise. I stood on my porch sipping bitter coffee, watching as two white vans with tinted windows pulled up across the street. The crime scene tape had long since been removed, but the reputation clinging to that house was now permanent. People crossed the street rather than walk past it. And today, it would see its last act as center stage. Emily and Emma were escorted out one after the other, both still in oversized cardigans. Emily in that same orange thing, and Emma draped in yellow like a circus tent. They had clearly lost sleep. Gone were the smug expressions, replaced by sallow cheeks and puffy eyes. They looked smaller somehow, even though their size hadn't changed. Maybe it was the weight of reality now resting on their shoulders. Neither of them said a word as they were led to the van. Their eyes darted around the neighborhood, looking for someone to glare at, someone to blame, someone to cry to. But the only one watching was me. I didn't wave. I didn't smirk. I just stood still, calm, like a man watching rain finally fall on a fire he'd been fighting alone. Later that morning, I was called to testify. Jennings met me on the courthouse steps, holding a file thick with evidence. "They're still playing the victims," he said as we walked inside, claiming they're being targeted for being eccentric and harmless. Said they only borrowed mail because they thought it was being delivered incorrectly. I laughed short and dry. "And the GPS tracker that ended up inside their kitchen drawer?" "Oh, they have an explanation for that too." Said they were protecting the neighborhood from suspicious packages. I raised my eyebrows. So now they're neighborhood heroes. Apparently. Jennings smiled, but there was no humor in it. "They're trying everything. Blame. Tears. Even accused you of being obsessed with them." I stopped walking. "What? Claimed you were fixated. That this was all retaliation for them rejecting your advances." I stared at him. "That's wildly insane." Jennings shrugged. "It's what desperate people do." The courtroom was small but packed. Neighbors had come. Some curious. Some angry. Most just grateful to finally see justice unfold. I recognized Mr. Bailey in the back row, the retired woman from 3 houses down, even the mail carrier, who gave me a discreet thumbs up when our eyes met. Emily and Emma sat side by side at the defense table, each with an overworked public defender and identical expressions of disbelief, as if the entire system had conspired to misunderstand them. When I took the stand, I told the truth. I explained the first missing package, the vanishing birthday card, the patterns, the cameras, the footage, the sting. I described how Jennings had orchestrated the entire operation, how the tracker led straight to their house, how dozens of packages were recovered, some opened, some hidden, some listed for resale online under fake names. Their attorney objected frequently, tried to spin it, but every piece of evidence had been collected legally. Every timestamp, every video, every package documented. The judge was quiet but observant, sharp. She didn't miss a thing. Then came the real blow. Jennings took the stand and revealed something new. A detail I hadn't heard before. The UV powder from the decoy cache, he said, flipping through notes, was found not only on the defendant's hands, but also inside drawers in their kitchen, on the handle of a safe, and smeared across several envelopes addressed to other victims. He paused, letting that settle. This wasn't an accident. This was methodical, intentional, a sustained pattern of theft and concealment. That sealed it. Emily broke first. She burst into tears, loud, theatrical sobs, the kind meant for reality TV. Emma followed a beat later, clutching her sister's arm like she was drowning in shallow water. But the judge didn't flinch. 3 counts of mail theft, 2 counts of wire fraud, 1 count of obstruction. Bail revoked. Sentencing set for the following month. As they were led away, Emily turned her head sharply, scanning the room like a hawk with a broken wing. Her eyes landed on me. "You ruined our lives," she shrieked, her voice cracking. "We were just trying to get by." Emma echoed, "This is a witch hunt. He's been stalking us for months." The courtroom erupted. Gasps. Whispers. The judge slammed her gavel. But I didn't respond. Jennings leaned over and whispered, "Let them dig. They're already in the hole." Back outside, the sun was blistering. I loosened my collar and exhaled slowly. It was over. Almost. In the days that followed, the story went viral. Local news outlets ran the footage Jennings had cleared for release. Titles like "Twins Behind Neighborhood Mail Heists Finally Caught" and "Karens Go Federal." Sisters indicted in suburban sting flooded Facebook feeds. Neighbors came by to thank me. Some dropped off cookies. One guy even gave me a bottle of wine with a handwritten card that said, "For protecting the porch." I got my stolen camera lens back, still sealed. The check for my client was long canceled, but the birthday card for my mom? That one hurt. It had been opened, read, and tossed like junk. The bill inside, gone. Jennings stopped by one afternoon to return the recovered items. He handed me the lens, a padded envelope with my name scribbled in childish all caps, and a plastic evidence bag containing the fake sweepstakes letter. "Kept the tracker?" I asked. He smiled. "Souvenir." I nodded. "How long do you think they'll get?" "Hard to say. Maybe a few years. Could be more if the fraud charges stick." "Do you think they'll learn anything?" He laughed. "No. But they'll be learning it behind bars, so that's something." As we stood on my porch, the neighborhood slowly returning to normal, I realized how quiet it felt. No shrill laughter echoing across the street. No passive-aggressive jabs. No oversized women in cardigans rummaging through what wasn't theirs. Just peace. It was a strange feeling, that kind of silence. Like walking through the aftermath of a storm and realizing the trees were still standing. A week later, a moving truck appeared outside the twins' house. I watched from a distance as a real estate agent in heels and a Bluetooth headset marched up the steps, phone pressed to her cheek. 2 men in polos followed, hauling out furniture, floral couches, a cracked dining table, and dozens of tote bags, most of them stained with food or makeup. By noon, the for sale sign was up. The windows, once covered with pastel curtains, now stood bare. Word spread that the house was being liquidated to pay off legal fees. Poetic. Later that evening, I sat out on my porch with a beer, the sun dipping below the rooftops. A couple walked past pushing a stroller, chatting softly. A kid on a skateboard zipped by, earbuds in. The street felt alive again. And then, something curious. A black car pulled up across the street and parked in the driveway. A woman stepped out, maybe mid-30s, sharp pantsuit, clipboard in hand. Behind her, a man stepped out with a toddler in one arm and a grocery bag in the other. New neighbors. The woman looked around, scanned the neighborhood, and spotted me. She offered a small wave. I raised my bottle in return. The family disappeared inside. A minute later, one of the lights flickered on. I stood and walked down to my mailbox, just to check. Inside, nestled neatly, was a bundle of fresh envelopes. No tampering. No creases. No greasy fingerprints. I took a breath and smiled. Then, just for good measure, I looked up at the new camera Jennings had helped install above the mailbox. Sleek. Motion sensitive. Streaming straight to the cloud. Let them try again. The system was ready. And so was I.